What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a very special video today because we're talking about a very special album. It's the sophomore album, Pretty Odd by Panic at the Disco. Why are we making this video today? Because Pretty Odd has just turned 10 years old. Happy birthday, Pretty Odd. A decade in existence as of March 25th, 2018. This is an album that definitely kept that promise that they made on the first album of swearing to shake things up, because this time around things were vastly different. And at the time, unfortunately, critics and fans were both very lukewarm on this album. And I think that over time, the band's ignorance towards the album, in terms of ignoring it, I should say, is something that I feel has made new fans really just not respect the album for what it is. They might not even listen to it because they think, oh, well, if Brendon Urie doesn't talk about it, then it's not important. I think this is one of the ballsiest moves that I've ever seen in modern music history, because they shifted genres big time. They mixed it up, and this was just their sophomore album. They had just planted their footing. They got that massive following with A Fever You Can't Sweat Out in 2005. They toured on that, and then they dropped something that is so 60s, 50s, and maybe even 70s inspired, very reminiscent of the Beatles, and a major change of pace. The songwriting was really intelligent, something that was far above, I think, even what they achieved on their debut, but not to slander that album by any means. I love that album, but this album was just very, very different, and I think that a lot of people have to learn to understand that just because the band themselves don't talk about it, it doesn't mean it's not important. Pretty Odd was recorded over the course of 2 years, and this was an album that really found the band struggling with their creativity and to not write themselves into a corner. Ryan Ross, a former member of the band at this point, was writing more songs and was wanting more singing duties, and that's something that really kind of struck a nerve, I think, with Brendon Urie. They kind of clashed, and I do think that Ryan may have been kind of dismissive of Brendon Urie's talent in a way just so that he could let himself shine a bit more. Even though tensions were very high, they were fighting hard to get the music done, and as Zach Cloud Hall, the tour manager for Panic at the Disco, recently said on Instagram for the band's 10th anniversary of this album, there were many great memories with this album, but also a lot of struggles. Recording for the Pretty Odd sessions also took longer than normal just because there were so many instrumentalists that would come in and play on this record, whether it be something that you're familiar with or maybe one of the sounds that's just in the layers of the mix. This record was so smart in the way that it layered and really put a lot of things that the listener could peel back. It was almost like ear candy, just unpeeling and unwrapping every song here. The band finally set a release date for Pretty Odd, and that date, of course, was March 25th, 2008. The band had initially hoped to have this out very early January, perhaps February of 2008, but of course that didn't quite happen. There were some mixing issues, and obviously the band was still kind of fighting within themselves over certain tweaks to songs and everything like that. The record was finally put out into the world, and it was kind of like Fall Out Boy's Folie à Deux. Critics were okay to it. They weren't exactly super positive, but the fans were kind of lukewarm, and that really showed in the sales. It didn't even sell 150,000 in its first week, considering that their last record had sold over 2.5 million copies. This was considered a failure. Many fans like myself absolutely adored the new sound of this record. It was something that, like I said, was inspired by the Beatles and many other bands, and there were many songs on this record that were playful and just had such a unique sound that they didn't fit in with what was going in the mainstream whatsoever. So it's no surprise that, obviously, other than 9 in the Afternoon or even That Green Gentleman, there weren't really any hits on this record. Pretty Odd didn't even get certified gold in the United States until 2016, and that's crazy considering even their last album, Death of a Bachelor, did it so quickly. But this album had kind of a cult following, and still to this day, there's many like myself that do really appreciate this album for what it is. There's a lot to sink into, whether it be the lush songwriting or even the vibe of the era. I think that many of these tracks really do come to life, and they give you something to really think about. It was kind of a psychedelic pop and even psychedelic rock and baroque pop experience. It was something that was so different from what was going on and what many of the other bands of the era were doing, and that was going electronic and going more crunkcore or going whatever was popular on MySpace at the time. And then here's these guys that are dressed up in their old school garb playing songs barefoot on stage. It was something beautiful. I truly wish I could have gone to the Pretty Odd tour, because those who have gone and have told me have said it's been amazing, and from everything that I've seen and read online, that looks to be very, very true. The live DVD Live in Chicago was released from this era, and it's something that I believe came exclusively with the vinyl bundle for Pretty Odd. My girlfriend Hannah happens to own that. She didn't know that they would be worth so much someday. This now goes for over $300 to $400 on eBay, Amazon, and even Discogs online at this point. Live in Chicago is a wonderful DVD. It's an hour of reworked versions of the songs from their first album, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, that took more of a rock charm to them, and also songs from Pretty Odd that in a live setting really came to life and really gave you a visual interpretation of what they were going for. And it seemed like in the Live in Chicago DVD, the band was still having fun, even though there was stress from touring and from just being bandmates that had different ideas, wanting to go different directions, and I don't think that Brendan Urie was super sold on the whole idea of, hey, we're like the 60s and modern day band here. 10 years later, unfortunately, this album is more underappreciated than ever before. Fans aren't really finding out about it and connecting with it as much as they would other records, because Brendan Urie rarely acknowledges the fact that this album exists outside of 9 in the Afternoon.
Shoutouts to John, Ryan, and Spencer. Goddamn, that was fucking beautiful. Happy birthday, Pretty Odd.
But that is very rare, and on the new set list for the Pray for the Wicked tour, unfortunately, 9 in the Afternoon has been cut. That means that no songs from Pretty Odd are being performed, and this era is being forgotten about. To an extent, I understand why Brendan Urie does not want to play these songs live, or doesn't want to talk about it. I think in a few rare Instagram live appearances, he has talked about a few things relating to Pretty Odd, and they didn't even do anything for the 10th anniversary. The official Twitter account could have put something out, but instead they continued to shamelessly plug their new singles constantly. Thanks, Crush Management. I already alluded to the fact that Zach Cloud Hall, the tour manager, posted about Pretty Odd. So did John Walker, the ex-member of Panic at the Disco. He's been tweeting cryptically about missing the band and missing playing live with his friends. He even met up with Ryan Ross for lunch, and that sent the Panic fandom into a frenzy, or should I say, a panic. It seems like they were totally on board to at least talk and maybe perhaps be in talks to rejoin Panic, but it seems like Brendan Urie's ego is getting in the way once again. He doesn't want to talk about this era because he's so far removed from it. And in my opinion, I feel like he's grown so successful, he also feels like, hey, well, Pretty Odd, that was just that little thing, you know? It's like Aaron Carter not talking about his early stuff maybe, or, you know, NSYNC or Justin Timberlake not wanting to talk about the early days of the boy band. It's just, oh, that was childish stuff. I'm doing this now. But the fact is, in terms of musicianship, lyrical content, and just everything in general, the impact of the songs, Pretty Odd stands leagues above the new material. Revisiting this album and A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, even Vices and Virtues, just further cemented the fact that I knew that this stuff is so much better than what they're doing now. The new songs might sound passable enough to me, but passable is nowhere near as good or as iconic as the stuff that they were able to do before. And that's why I love the hell out of Pretty Odd. It dared to be different. It dared to do something different. It dared to not just try to be some anthem for your weekend. It was more than that. It was more than a song that's in one ear, out the other. It was an experience, and it's an era that I will forever miss in Panic at the Disco. Will Brendan Urie ever give it up and just go solo? Who knows? What do you guys think, though? Should he go solo, or is it okay that he's still using the Panic at the Disco moniker, even though he's the only member left in the band? Would you be welcome to seeing Ryan Ross and John Walker rejoin, and maybe even Spencer Smith, considering he now has a role at DCD2 Records, which of course co-signed with Fueled by Ramen, is Panic at the Disco's label home. So obviously with Spencer being on board in some capacity once again, would you be open to seeing a reunion? I know most would. Some people would say no, Brendan should just continue on and soldier on solo. But if he's gonna do that, and if he's gonna keep doing the albums like this, please drop the Panic name at some point. I hope everyone learned a little bit more about Pretty Odd today, its release, its recording, its legacy, its impact on culture, and even Panic fans such as myself over the years. It's something that I still absolutely love, and rewatching the Live in Chicago DVD recently, it just showed me that the band captured magic, and they hit lightning in a bottle right there, and I don't know if they'll ever get anything this special once again. Anyways, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Please drop a like on this video and subscribe if you are brand new. Check out another Panic at the Disco video right here if you'd like to see another one, maybe perhaps right over here, another little review that I did. All of my social media accounts can be found in the description down below, and if you would like to support the channel on Patreon, then tap right over there in that annotation in the corner of your screen. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon on ARTV.